Hello guys, how's it going? Welcome to the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast. I'm your host Alex Whiteley, and we're coming from Couleurlive. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah.
And I'm here with Nathalie Hildegarde Liege.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Just get right in front of that mic. I know James Warman's in the background, just taking some lovely pictures. By the way, James.
Nathalie's smiling.
James
trying
did
her best. Yeah.
James did some amazing photos when we did the Draw and Illustrator Fair, and I gotta say they were just stunning photos. So thank you, James. His thumbs up in the background. I was like, do you want me to set you up a microphone, James? And he was like, no, you're okay today, thanks. It's one of those days. He's just like, don't get me in front of a microphone, Alex. So Nathalie, get in front of this microphone so we can hear your voice. We spoke very briefly at St. Mary's when we were covering the church's historical open. And I said to you, 10, 15 minutes with you is just not enough. First of all, we had masks on. We're quite well spaced out and aired out here, so we can have the masks off. Mm-hmm. So we can spend a bit of time getting to know each other.
Yes,
So,
I'm really delighted.
I'm really glad. I'm glad.
I try to find my words, thinking in French as well.
Well, yeah, we'll get onto the beginnings of Nathalie in a sec. But I want to talk about where we are right now. Can you explain where we are right now with this building? What is this place?
So this building, the building is the English Bridge Workshop, which is run by a charity. It's been there for many years, really, for supporting artists and community activities like Tai Chi, live drawing. All sorts of activities are happening under this roof. And I've been one of them really since 1998. I had the smallest workshop in the building when I moved in, and I now have the biggest one.
And I was explaining that. So right now we stood around the work table, and to describe. I mean, James is taking some great pictures, so we can show you on social media. But to show you, this is all work in progress. You know, there's trays with different coloured glasses. There's templates here with cut glass all set like a jigsaw puzzle. It's literally, I'm in the midst of everything right now, and it just feels nice. It just feels nice to be here whilst magic is happening. You know, this is art, isn't it? Yeah.
So, and then we also have a kiln, really, because
you have a kiln,
yeah, I've got a big kiln at the back.
So
a table to paint on, all sorts of equipments, really.
Amazing. This is your playground, right?
It is my playground. Yeah. Yeah, so a quiet playground in some ways. I don't really jump around, but
is it one of those things that I imagine stained glass can be like, you know, you put a lot of work into something, then to make a mistake, it's frustrating, you know, because you set out this work, you blast it through a kiln, and it sticks together. And if you make a mistake, you got to start from scratch, right? Is that how it goes?
Yes. What I find the hardest sometimes if the glass, because some of the glass may have sometimes a little bit of defect in the making or in the transport.
Okay, so
and when you cut the glass and you had selected a beautiful color, you know, with the lines that you wanted, everything, and you cut it and you suddenly realize that there was something in that glass which then is diverting your cut.
Yeah.
And you lose all the potential of that piece which you had planned or selected. Yeah, some kind of wrong direction, really. But or you are a little bit tired and then you got your cutter in the wrong position and you do a bit of a mistake. But for painting on glass, so you could, as you paint, you may remove and do it again if you're not happy with what you've done. Mm-hmm. And as for the kiln, you know, hopefully never have any problems.
Good.
I didn't have any so far, so yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Because you can't just grab another piece of paper, right? With this, it's another piece of glass that you might not have enough of, you know. So yeah, it must be difficult.
Well, yes, the glass is when it comes in really large pieces. It could be
so Nathalie,
as big as, you know, 1 meter.
It's like a normal pane of glass, like you see in a window.
Pieces, really, like, yes. It varies with suppliers and stockists. But if you get it straight from the company that really does the mouse-blown glass, it could be like 1,120 millimeters wide, by about 600 millimeters wide. So it would be quite something to cut, really, and and stock. And then gradually, as you create works with it, then you have little bits leftovers. And they are for me, the magic little pieces really that later when you do another commission, among the other pieces that were cut out of a new piece of glass, you go in your shelves and you search for the magic one, really.
The one.
The perfect color, the lines.
Hold it up to the light. Oh, that's the one,
Yes.
Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah.
It's all amazing. Honestly, I was absolutely blown away by your work when I saw you at St. Mary's. But let's find out a bit where you begin. Where do you begin? Where does life begin for you?
When I start a project, or generally speaking?
Generally speaking,
where life starts from. I think it starts with having my mind, quite often stopped by details, really.
Details, yes.
Yeah, details, a subtlety of, a color or whatever, and I just, I could be easily distracted visually by what my eyes would place on, really, as I'm talking with someone when I'm somewhere, and always, observing. And I think it's one of the reasons why I also loved working with stained glass, is that it changes even once you have finished a piece of glass and it's fitted in somebody's house. Every day they will read it slightly differently if you really pay attention to details of light going through it. It works with the weather, with the quality of the light, but very differently from a clear glass, obviously. Yes, it's this kind of detail which I really...
And this has always been the focus for you, is the little things in life that just make things perfect.
Yeah, maybe...
or the imperfections,
really
I don't know.
Yeah, that's it, yeah, I like both. I don't have my eyes fixed on perfection, really. I'm not, I'm a perfectionist when I'm finishing my work, where I tend to always, criticize myself about something, really. But apart from that, I'm keen to look at as well as at details which may not come from perfection, in fact.
Yeah. I'm the same.
Day-to-day life.
I'm the same. I kind of paint with audio. Do you like that, James? I paint with audio. I'm ridiculous. I really am. No, but but I like my things to sound natural. I don't like things because I listen to podcasts, and sometimes you get the ones where they're hiding close to the microphone and they sound really great. I like life to happen when I'm recording stuff. Yes. So if I'm in a bar, let's hear the bar. If I'm in a cafe, the clinking of the mugs, the grinding of the car. Yeah. These imperfections make life, right? It's really important.
Yeah. And then the spontaneity of it, the thing that you might not have, thought of putting into your artwork, and then comes up first of what your day, really, what you did that day, really. Yeah.
So from a young age, this was your focus, was the details. When do you decide that you want to get involved with stained glass? What was the first moments for you?
When I was in my 20s, really.
Yeah.
I first was thinking of a craft, really, when I was 12, but sadly my parents were not, they were from their backgrounds of family of people who have been in crafts, really, but different crafts, from seamstress to a hat maker to a wood carver to metal work, really.
So design, though, is in your genes.
A little bit of, anyway, the crafting.
Yeah.
The perfectionist part of the crafting, really.
Yeah.
But when I was 12, it was for me, obvious that I would go in the direction of a craft, but I wanted to go for a school in Paris. And I would have been obviously staying in Paris, and my parents were a bit worried of me being alone right in the middle of Paris when I was 12. So that stopped them accepting me presenting my folder full of all the information. They had nothing to do. I had gathered everything, and they refused. And that stayed in me. I said, well, you don't want it now, I'll have it later. I'm quite stubborn on that.
So was that a fork in the road for you then?
Yes, yeah, it was. And that school would have introduced me to all sorts of crafts, including glass or stained glass, but it would have been anything, really. you touch a bit of everything for the first 2 years of a bit like an apprenticeship.
Yes.
And then they would have guided you to the best studios in France, to keep going with learning the craft you select and so on. So, yeah.
Yeah, so where did that take you then, that journey? Obviously, like, this was like a thing you really wanted. You couldn't quite do it. So where did life take you then?
Well, in some ways, it took me to make a choice later, which was on the side of arts, fine arts. So, and really swimming in a pool of all sorts of experimental works, really.
Wow.
And surrounded by, full freedom and calling you to be as free as possible and know yourself the best you can to really.
Was this mixed with a bit of guidance as well? Because I imagine if somebody said to me, right, here's a license to go and do what you like, Alex. I just wouldn't know what to do, because I'd be like, there are so many millions of different possibilities of things I could do. But if you have a goal, or you have a guideline, or somebody that's coaching you and telling you what you should do possibly, or giving you ideas, did you have that bit of guidance during that time? Or was it just a case of, go for it, Nathalie?
Well, the thing is, I went for it thinking, well, I have something to say as well. I didn't feel like I wanted to do a craft in order to copy. Mm-hmm. That wasn't really my mind anyway when I wanted to do it when I was 12. I wanted to learn the technique and then be creative. So as I wanted to be creative from that time, I did doing fine arts. I kept going with, the idea of being creative and learning from life, and having, statements to make sometimes as well on what you decide about what you want to pass as a message, I suppose, really. So I had interest in artists who were really passing really strong messages, like Joseph Beuys, a German artist, who was doing, live presentations, like with dead hair and
contemporary,
very
movements.
Contemporary, settings, and
nice.
Yes, and I did my master based on his work, really, and I was really keen to be close to the environment in a sense of nature, really, and for already. The question is not new, really. It's far from being new, yes, to have a different relation to our environment as.
Well, things
nature.
are changing all the time, isn't it? The environment around us is changing as we speak right now.
Yes,
we're slowly coming out of this COVID era. We might go back into a COVID era, but photography, in some respects, will always differ now, because you'll have like masks on, no masks on. But James, you shared a picture of Van Gogh, the lights in the sky. What's it called? I'm awful with art. What's it called? The Starry Night. And somebody made like a 3D picture of it, and you could scroll around, and it was almost as if you were there, like in this coffee shop, in that area. And I'm just thinking, okay, so things are going to change with face masks and life, and some Umbro t-shirts aren't quite fashionable anymore. These things change, it's fashion and stuff like that. Yeah. But coffee shop culture, that kind of sticks with us. That's the kind of civilization, isn't it? It's picking out those imperfections and those little changes in life.
Yes, yeah. But I was really referring as well to our position as human beings to our planet. Really.
Yes. Yeah.
Which I find really very important to consider in actions we do every day.
Yeah.
Not only in terms of pure environmental issues like climate change, but also just for learning for oneself. Really, when you open your eyes and your mind to what is surrounding you, including nature, you will gain a lot, and you would have a different approach of yourself and others by simply giving more attention to the consequence of your actions.
Okay, so you're learning the story by laying down breadcrumbs backwards, learning about the past and making sure you stay on the right path, right? Yeah.
Well, no. I think it's an idea which is a bit prejudiced in some ways, this idea that because you respect the environment or things like this, you would only refer to the past. Not at all, because we've got plenty of contemporary things that have been happening that help us today to have a future and a relation, a creative relation to the future.
I like that.
Which it doesn't mean that you refer to the past, not at all. No, and in fact, when you look at artists like Joseph Beuys, he wasn't referring to the past at all, really.
No.
In his own structure of work, he wasn't repainting a little hair. He was really in action. Yes, so for me, stained glass has this kind of position which could be ambiguous sometimes how people understand it, because it is in a church most of the time, as in history, and then it could be in somebody's private house, but it tends to be automatically, put into a box if you don't know much about it, as a form of art which is quite an old-fashioned way, or an old structure, or something which is like medieval or Victorian. Mm-hmm. But there's plenty of exciting work which is done in America, in Europe, wherever, very contemporary, aesthetically speaking, and the challenge as an artist, I consider my work as arts and crafts, really. Mm-hmm. And because I did fine arts as well, I want to keep my truth, really, my as an artist. But at the same time, I work for people who come to me as clients, and I have to satisfy some of their wishes in terms of colors or themes or history. I have to tell that they want me to work with, and each time is a little bit of a challenge to have the two of us existing. They have to exist, I have to exist.
Yes.
So if they come to me, and this is what I'm happy with at the moment, really, that I feel like the more I come in time with my work, the more I feel like the people who come to me understand better where I am as well.
Yeah, of course.
And they come to me in order to have an artwork as much as a craft work, and enjoy this artwork in their home. So
I've got to say, since
home or public site. So
absolutely. I mean, like, since I first started doing the Biscuit, I mean, I've been doing this about 3.5 years now. I have learned so much about art, genuinely.
Yes.
I said the other day, I'm a bit of a dumbass in some regards when it comes to art. But I've worked with so many great artists. They've come on the show. I mean, just last week I went to Sam Paul Stride's exhibition that she did, The Seas of the Moon. And I walked in there and I was just blown away by it all. And I can't explain it. I can't explain why this art makes me feel the way it does. And I had a similar experience with St. Mary's, because not being a religious guy, not being to church as much as most people, or the people that go to church, I've just looked at stained glass as, it's just a church thing. It's just there, until Rob Milton took me around St. Mary's and actually showed me the details in the glass. And I was speaking to Shane Chebsey, who's doing the comic books trail next weekend. Great guy. And I was saying, like, is stained glass the world's first comic books?
I'm glad you say that.
Yes, because that's accurate.
I'm delighted you say that, because for me it's like a comic.
You should have seen the smile on Nathalie's face.
I'm making my eyes sparkle now. I'm really happy with that.
Yeah.
That you say that already, because I was meaning to say it.
Yeah.
For me, it's like a cartoon as well. It's like storytelling, and the goal of it was educative as well to people on a large scale, like a cartoon in the church for people who didn't know how to read in the first place in the medieval period. So they read the stories like a cartoon.
Yeah, in 4K.
Yeah.
HD. James got that one. Because, when you look at a stained glass window, you look at it and from outside, you're like, look at those beautiful colours. It's great. But you zoom in. it's almost like an iPhone when you pinch and drag, right? You zoom in and you zoom in again, and it just gets more and more detailed. I mean, if you've never been to St. Mary's or any church really and gone to look in stained glass, get right up and have a look, because the details are just amazing. And these things are hundreds of years old, and you're thinking, how did they make that back then? You know, because these are true representations of life back then. You know, from the attire, from the family house. Shields and emblems and things like all these things that are a true representation of life back then. It's just truly stunning. I think it's great.
Yes, and we are lucky today that we have also cameras which could zoom in so easily.
Exactly, yeah.
Because when it are high, I mean, even in the 90s when I started to be interested, when it was a bit too high, it was a bit difficult to see the details. But when you look at the way they drew the lips and the eyes and everything, they really had fun, really. It was really amazing dynamic in it.
Yeah.
And yes, I bet cartoonists sometimes take inspiration or find common grounds with
well, I mean, I've read
the expressions on faces. Yeah.
I've read some Batman comics in my past that look very much like a stained glass when there's like whoa, bam, bam, you struggle no which way to go. So you went to do fine art, and where do you come back into come to Shrewsbury and be back into stained glass and to being where we are today? I love that. Have I got a story for you?
Yes.
Yeah?
Life, yeah.
Life. Just life. Life happens.
It's just like, it's a stream of stories. Yes, well, how did I come in England? Because in France, when I started, so in 1995, really, I wanted to get back into it in the sense of living the fine art world that I had started with, feeling like it wasn't 100% me, in the sense of my wish to craft and my wish to work with a client, and the approach is different. And I love working with other people as a team. So stained glass is. Well, I work alone now, but my aim is also to build up a team later, really. So, yes, when you work as an artist, I suppose I wanted to tell more stories that came. I love the idea of playing with communication with the clients and coming to me and asking me to do something, and then, you know, have two identities clashing a little bit.
Nice.
Straight one in front of the other.
The fire.
Well, a little bit of fire now and then, or smiles and happiness. And really, like yesterday when I met that lady, it was fantastic. It's a new experience each time. And so that's one of the motivations. I felt like, no, it's not me working alone in my studio. I was happy with creating new things, but at the same time, it wasn't really me 100%. And then I was working in the Pompidou Center in Paris, right in the middle of art every day, as a guide. And then they were planning to do a refurbishment of the building and offered us to do training if we wanted.
Oh, wow.
So that's the time to do it.
Huge opportunity.
That's it. That was my second chance to get into learning the techniques and crafts. And that's when I chose to come in England, because when I was searching for the training in France in that period, it was very difficult because of my age. And it was difficult because I was a woman, as simple as that.
Wow.
In the suburbs of Paris, where the studios were quite old-fashioned stories, really. So I was a bit too much like a fine art person and a bit too much of a woman.
Too much of a woman. I love that. We'll definitely phrase that one.
That stopped me doing it, really, in France, and I felt like, well, nobody will stop me, so where do I go? And then I was looking at books in a bookshop about stained glass, and found this amazing book by Brian Clark about stained glass, contemporary stained glass, and discovered that many of them came from Swansea University, studied stained glass in Swansea University. And so I opened the door of Swansea University, and it all started from there, really.
Amazing. So
and I stayed here because I was awarded a workshop in Ironbridge in 1998. So, and I had a chance then to start a grant to start my own business. Start my life as a stained glass artist.
And was that the beginning of Couleurlive? Or was that what this is now, or what was it known?
Well, I didn't name it Couleurlive yet at that time because I also was myself learning about myself, I suppose, really, and I found my name really later. But it was the beginning of what I am today, really.
Wow, in Ironbridge as well, of all places. You know, that's like one of the best places to be around arts and crafts, isn't it? It's just a beautiful place for it, you know. Yeah. And what was that experience like then, opening your first workshop, doing what you're doing in Ironbridge?
Well, the workshop was enormous, a really large space, really beautiful site.
Was it daunting or was it exciting?
It was a bit daunting at the beginning because obviously I had a large space and I had to fill it in with stock of glass.
Oh, wow.
Which is very expensive. So, I was starting from scratch. So it was really...
It's like a restaurant buying in stock, isn't it? So
exactly. First time like a business buying stock. And we forget about that in some ways when you create stained glass artwork. The stock is very expensive. So I have to build up my stock and build up my collection.
Yeah.
And part of the grant could be used for that, but also, purchasing other items and all sorts of things. So setting myself up. And I knew from the beginning that I had only 2 years in Ironbridge. So I had put my name on a list in the English Bridge to get a studio if one was free. And then was very lucky that one was free when I was finishing in Ironbridge. And
I can't imagine what that's like though, to be like, okay, you got 2 years in this studio. Go. What's going through your head? Do you think I've got to make glass for the masses? Look at that, glass for the masses. Or you've got to work on a masterpiece. I mean, I know you like working with clients and things like this, but have you got to prove yourself in one way or the other?
Well, it's not really proving myself, but it was to stay true to who I am, really. So
nice. Yeah.
I did fine arts, and I had things I wanted to do and express in my work. Really. So I was definitely not ready to accept or take in any form of work that would just be only for money making, I would say, quickly. And so I was really, from the very beginning, aiming at creation. And so, yes, and stay in the color scheme and the choice of glass that I was doing, stay true to who I am, really.
So your niche, your kind of, your calling card, have you got one of them? Is there a certain style that people look at in a few years' time and be like, that's Nathalie Hildegarde Liege. That's look at the lines. You can tell. Like, is there a style that is yours, like, uniquely?
Well, I'd say that I'm in the style. What I would view myself, but also I view it, but maybe other people would. You
should ask one of your fans. They should definitely tell you. It's like going to Bono. What's your favorite song of
that's
U2?
That's what led me to go into the word name Couleurlive.
Yeah,
is that I'm in my work. I'm quite daring to use stained glass colors differently to what is usually selected. I've dared to put together glass, really, like different styles of glass that people sometimes didn't put together, like a glass which would be used for LED lights, or an American glass, which it's technically, for me as a stained glass artist, I know what I'm talking about, but which was like a style of textures and waves of colors and so on, which were meant to be like used as one type of glass to create one type of artwork with it. And so I've dared to mix from the mouse blown to the machine made to the American sweet, like soft sweets look of colors and together to play with the colors and the textures.
That's what we used to do as kids. We used to get collect Quality Street like wrappers, and then you'd spread them out onto cling or some clear plastic and you make your own stained glass. That's like an exercise we used to do in school.
Yes.
It's like make your own stained glass windows, kids. This is an art attack. This is an art attack.
So I really didn't want to stop myself because I was thinking, oh, this is machine made and this is mouse blow, and I shouldn't mix the two.
Yes.
This kind of traditional setup sometimes in creation of stained glass, and so I've let myself go with as if I was, as I had been before in art, like, collage and, daring but to aim at a color scheme of works or textures which would really render what my goal was, like in terms of depths of landscapes or depths of movements and structures which would express be semi-dramatic maybe a little bit, but some maybe in my work there's a little bit of melancholy or a bit of dramatic which stayed in me maybe from my influence from Joseph Beuys or different German artists or French artists. And the side is a bit of declaration of a dynamic, of a movement, really.
Yeah. So you're using the unorthodox methods, colours, types of glasses to display these bold movements by you. Then.
Yeah. So as I said earlier, I'm fixed on details really, and the detail also is in the speed of life or the slow movement or the movement of things and the depth of a landscape or how flat it may look sometimes and so on. So I like to work on this kind of geometrical effects that the lead line would allow to do, as well as the glass structures. If you look at the glass behind you, which is a set here of cuts I've done, you see the different movements of the colors in it, and
some are quite sharp, some are quite rounded.
Exactly, yeah. So it's a bit like when you are surrounded by walking in town really and go around and you have very different aesthetics around you, but it still is united somewhere along the line simply by life, really, by the interaction of people and things together. So that's what I keep in my mind as well when I work with the cuts of glass. I like to show how things which could be very different when you look at them separately could marry very well when you put them together, either with color or shape or lines. So.
I think things like this, what they do is they make you stop for a sec.
Yes, that's
and they make you zoom in to the details. Because that's what I have learned. That's what I just explained at the beginning of this. Is that I used to take things like stained glass windows for granted. Oh yeah, it's just a church window. Okay, that's cool. But when you stop for a second, you just look at the details, the finer details. It tells a story, and I'm learning a lot about this. That art is just beautiful, and whether it's music, whether it's stained glass, whether it's drawing, whether it's photography, like James is doing right now, it's all life. It's very important to document.
Sketching a detail of life with photography. In fact, I started with photography.
Yeah,
that's the very first thing I've done as a teenager. In the black room and black and white. And,
do you do that? Do you do the black room stuff?
Yeah, I have done.
Yeah.
You have, yeah. Is that frustrating? It looks really frustrating. It looks like a really slow process. The black room sort of, it didn't work. Because nowadays you take a picture on an iPhone, it doesn't work, take again. But back in them days, you take it, you'd hang it up, and then it'll come out and be like, its angle's in the way of the lens.
It was frustrating. I mean, I had a small budget and the paper was expensive.
Yeah.
And so you really had to think much more in depth before you would choose which one to, print on. Well, print.
It's not a steep learning curve.
Yeah.
Because as you said, every shot has a monetary value to it.
Yeah.
Because you have to pay for the film, you have to pay to process it. So you really do have to stop and think.
Yes.
do I need to take this shot? Am I in the right spot? Have I got the right settings? So
yes, it was very important in the background in your work. I was always thinking, okay, how much is going to cost really? Between the film that you buy, which was a film which had only 36 shots really, so you couldn't do thousands. You had 36, and it was expensive enough to think that 36 each has a very specific value really. Each time you take one, so you wouldn't lose your time. Like doing it again, like 20, and then choose it after you did 20. You did 20 in your brain and shoot one. And I think it's one of the things that stayed as well with me with the glass. It's the same when you cut the glass. You got one beautiful, very expensive piece of glass, which could cost up to £280. Wow. Yeah, just for one piece of colored glass, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So when you cut it, you think twice. You don't think, like I'm going to cut it and, if it doesn't work. You really study very well what you're about to do. And then I suppose it really pushes you to the best of yourself and the best of the product. And giving time as well for it. Giving time to pause. And observe and before you do it. And I suppose when we think of photography, black and white, of the first photographers, we did fantastic, beautiful shots, really. When you think of how they had to, limit it to what they had in hand, which was very little, really.
Yeah.
And get the best out of it. They did extremely well, really, and... yeah.
I imagine during the medieval times, it was kind of a good distraction. When we talk of the medieval times, half of it's mostly barbaric, right? There's lots of stuff going on that's just awful. So I imagine being in a stained glass workshop or any sort of artist, sort of a studio, it's just a good distraction from all that. So maybe that's probably what that was. They're making the most of just having a bit of quiet. Making this beautiful piece of art. I don't know. I'm just rambling.
No, but in medieval times, for today we give a financial value to the glass, but in that time the value was also what they had to do for the master above, really.
Yeah.
And how dangerous it was to mess up with whatever, not to satisfy the person above you who was your master and asking you to do something the most beautiful and the perfect, piece that would represent.
My nose isn't that big.
So yeah, it was very challenging. Yeah,
I imagine. Incredible though, that such amazing imagery can be made out of glass. It still is fantastic. May I ask you what your this may be really hard to answer. Maybe if you've got a handful, I don't. The proudest piece that you've made, something that you think about, and you're like, I can't believe I made that. I made that though. Have you got anything that? She's looking at me like, I ask this to people all the time. What's your favourite song?
Those two windows, really.
Which
I did. It's cast glass.
Okay.
So I haven't done any cutting glass, but I worked on sculptural work, really, a low relief, creating out of clay a low relief that then was out of rubber, kept as to have all the details. And then I went to Germany to create with enormous skills that they have, because it was somebody who used to work in UK with other the glass world of Shrewsbury, not really, but of UK, really. Mm-hmm. And so he invited me to come to his studio to do this at his studio. And this work happened when I had been diagnosed with a lymphoma, and I had to go through a bone marrow transplant. Oh. And it was the biggest work I ever had to do. And
of all times to get ill like that.
Which was interrupted by the events of this illness. But then happened in such a beautiful way in the end, was closing the story of what I had been through. But when I did it, it also was in relation with a community of miners who had suffered a lot. And I learned a lot from them, and I took photographs of them. So I did black and white photos. So I was like, everything of me was in it, really. From the idea of pain and suffering and being close to them in my pain and suffering.
Yeah.
And thinking of the ladies who posed, thinking of their husbands in the mines, that was the idea, really. And me photographing them and printing it in black and white, which was coming back to the pure light tones of black and white. And then putting it into glass, turning it into a modern technology. So the photos were transferred into the glass. You can see at the top the lady's hands on their chest. And so here I've pushed every bit of me in terms of creativity. If I have full freedom, that's me really, 100%.
Wow.
And
the parting
then,
of the clouds, that's like the perfect ray of sunshine. That's you. That's you. You at your best.
That was me, really. That was totally me. That was an achievement. I thought, at that
Amazing.
time, when I was doing it, at the end, I thought if I had died, I would have done what I wanted anyway.
Oh, bless you.
But yes, and I worked on traditional techniques in it as well, which was to paint on the glass the detail of text in the book that this man was holding. So like a photographic material on which I worked to transform it with painting.
Amazing.
So I've pushed all the techniques in it, really.
Fantastic. It is really cool. I love that so much.
And it's
like
in one of the most
understatement.
modest places in UK, in Gramthorpe, an enormous church which had a community of miners, obviously. And the only stained glass piece in that building. Which is very modern, and they were all so open-minded about the modernity of the technique.
Is that part of it there, across?
Exactly, yeah.
So you find it in
you
the details.
spotted it, yeah.
There.
Yeah, so that was a test piece which was done to see before I do it in glass if I was happy with my my rubber. So it's just silicone, really.
It's beautiful. See, I can notice these things. Got an eye for talent. That's what it is.
So on this one, you can see that in the middle, I worked on something quite spontaneous in terms of movement in the design of the Virgin Mary and child.
Yeah.
And then the two ladies holding their hands on their chest is the pieces which I did as close as possible to reality of my photographic materials. So
beautiful work.
Yeah.
It really is beautiful. And now we're here at Couleurlive, English Bridge Workshop. What's the role of this place then? So you clients come to you, they want stained glass, and you make the is that how it is? You make stained glass windows for clients. How far is your reach? How far do people come to you?
Well, the thing is, as I said, it was my happiest work, really, and it's quite, in some ways, for me, very, personal as a story. But at the same time, I'm very ready to really humbly be with people who want something completely different.
Yes.
As long as I learn from it, that's what I'm happy with, really.
Yeah.
So as long as they are open for me to experiment a little bit and have a little bit to push things further. And one of them was these poppies which I've done as a leaded light.
You mentioned the poppies on the...
yes, when we had the interview,
yes. That's right.
Or this piece which is on the table now, which I'm working on, which... is a gathering of little pieces that a lady had cherished of pieces which came from very different windows, apparently local little windows, and were from different periods, like from Victorian, medieval, all sorts of periods, one piece of each period nearly. And they wanted me to create one window which would make the most of each piece and pass a message in terms of choices of, like they wanted the bird of the heron and a moon landscape in the background. So a little bit of something that they had selected and wanted. And the render would be starting from very old pieces, which I haven't created, but, I would create out of it a message and they would display it in their home. It's not to fit in a window. It's more like a display piece. Really.
Oh, okay, nice. It's beautiful. It really is. I mean, just the design, the blueprints themselves look stunning. So I can't imagine what it's going to look like when it's done. It's going to be brilliant.
Yeah. So, and then the work which is at the back, which is in terms of creativity, I suppose much more freedom for me. But at the same time, in respect of a site, which is the Priest Nature Reserve, which is for the silver-studded blue butterfly. So the couple who asked me to do it have worked more than 40 years on the site, and they know extremely well every detail about, this nature reserve in terms of which animals are there, which butterflies, which insects, which flowers. And so it's been really a pleasure to share with them their knowledge, to learn from them. Mm-hmm. And then it's taking a bit longer, and simply because I'm also learning. I'm not learning in terms of stained glass, but I'm learning in terms of nature. Because what they want, they made a list of the insects they wanted, the butterflies, the birds, the plants, and I had to think of a space which is, a large nature reserve, and look at it as if I was like a drone, maybe a little bit from above, but think of how to put in it details of butterflies and insects without making it crowdy and heavy.
Sounds very ambitious.
It was very ambitious, and it is ambitious. And that's the kind of challenge that I really love to work with as well, because when I do that as well, for the next pieces, it always brings something up for the freedom of my work after.
Amazing. I'm so in awe of what you do. I really am, because I don't think I'd have the patience, in all honesty. I'm not very good at jigsaw puzzles, things like that. I don't have the... It's very hard for me sometimes, because the way to explain this is, okay, so we've got the Pod Aid thing coming up in September, which I'll tell everybody about properly at the end. But it's all that's on my mind. My mind's constantly racing. I'm constantly thinking about this thing, got ideas, we can do this, we can go to this person, we can ask this person, I can't slow down sometimes. And so if I was on a day where I'm full of jitters, all these sort of things, I got a gallon of coffee in me, there's no way I could slow down. And do this.
Yeah, so. the first work I was talking about, which is using pieces which were from different windows. The lady, when she brought the box, it was such a messy box, really dusty, messy box. I had to, like a puzzle, search for the pieces, identify what is what, do some research work a little bit to understand which period it may be from. And then some pieces were broken, so I had to find the pieces and put them together.
Wow.
And all this kind of little work which I did at the very beginning. And then think of how do I use them all in one story which they didn't belong to. So that's when I feel it's me as well in terms of community or teaching or things like this. When I run stained glass courses as well, I love gathering. I love gathering things and people.
It's like taking a really long paragraph and shortening it to 3 words to describe something perfectly, right? That's kind of what this is. It's like...
Yeah.
How long? Obviously, this is a specialist piece that you're putting a lot of time into. But how long does a piece take normally from the conception? They come to you. I've got an idea. Right to when it's finished. How long can it take?
Each piece is it's a bit like a child, really. So you don't know how long it will take to learn the same things that are offered to everybody. Each child will learn differently. So at the same time, each client is different, each work is different, each site is different. Each time I have to switch off and start again in some ways and get my mind into different circumstances. So like the Priest window is taking longer. Mm-hmm. Since I started, I got other commissions in, and I work a little bit in parallel with the others. The poppy was more like something which had to happen quickly.
Yes.
So it was a little bit slowed down because of the COVID and the beginning, because they came to me just before the COVID started.
This isn't something you can just do at home, right? You got to have the equipment. Can you do this at home? Do you do this at home, or do you...
Well, design work. I work a bit from home. The puppies, I created the design from home, really.
Okay.
In that period, and I was lucky at that time to have this design to do and other work to do on designs as well. So that kept me in my shielding, really. But so really, but technically, to cut glass or to cut the lead they are exactly more or less the same as what it was when it was medieval times. It's like painting, we have to prepare our paint. It's not in a tube and then you put it on a palette and then you paint with it. You have to prepare your paint.
Wow.
Yes. So, like they were doing in medieval periods, really. The only difference for us in some ways is that we have kilns which are faster and would do less fumes because it was woodwork and
of course.
Big fires. Yeah. But or the glass as well, the deliveries and the catalogs and the choice we have is different. But technically, it's a process which is hasn't changed much, really.
No. It's worth it if you put your time into it. The longer you take, as long as it's perfect.
Yes, I mean, the worry sometimes is for me to make the client understand from the very beginning. Don't expect it. It's not like you place an order to have a carpet delivered because it's not a factory process at all, really. And it's a creation. So it's like when you have an artwork.
I'm an artist.
Well, it's an artwork each time with a design. It's a creation each time. So it could be obvious or it could require a little bit of time to think more about the details, really. Have a pause to make sure that the finished work is right, really.
Well, you don't want your name attached to something that's subpar, really, do you? You want something... If it's something you've made, you want someone to go, oh, yeah, this is amazing work. You don't want them to go, oh, my God, you made this? And not that that's ever happened, I'm sure. Is there something that you have yet to do that you'd love to? Is there a window you'd love to work on? Is there, I don't know, your unobtainable goal or the thing you'd love to do with stained glass? Does that make sense? Is there something you would...
Well...
Yeah.
I've got an idea, yes, but I don't know if somebody is listening to the program and ready to. Yes, no, well, really, I love contemporary architecture, which would have also, the technical creativity to match the 21st century needs of improving all sorts of things, but also changing maybe our perception of space and how we use it and how we move on and be creative for the future, for generations. And I would love to join the teamwork of a totally new house and have a full project which is part of the whole structure of the building. That's my dream. Okay.
So as long as the building's there, your work is there. So that's what you've made. Oh, nice.
Yeah, as a to be part of a new project.
Yeah.
And have like when they were doing with the Art Nouveau these big projects like. In Glasgow, building a new project in architecture and in it, the crafts team.
There's a place in Wales
were there to discuss with the architects and, and including the creation of the patterns for the windows and the stained glass piece there. That would be my dream to technically push. Like I push my maximum for St. Luke's windows in Grimthorpe in terms of mixing techniques, to have something which would mix technical requirements for insulation, for example, to keep the warmth in the house and so on. Technically, for the quality of light and playing with using as less possible as electricity. All these things which I would love to have a really up to the top in terms of challenges for modernity.
Yeah.
And create an artwork in a building.
Bringing that sort of stained glass or, that sort of idea into the modern forefront, sort of, yeah.
Yes, the glass has, is one of the main materials of architecture,
yes.
Clear glass.
Yes.
In the period of the Art Nouveau, they worked together on, buildings which were at that time modern, and they still used colors and patterns in the windows to give an ambience to that new building. And the same way today we have beautiful works which are done in stained glass. It's not what I'm thinking of doing. Are things which may happen with different projects in America or in Germany or in Europe, or more commonly, or a little bit in UK as well. But at the same time, it's something which has been my reference when I started as well. When I did read that book by Brian Clark, that was the stained glass I wanted to also one day do.
Yeah.
And so I did a bit of it, but the difficulty was also for me, since I did this one at the time when I was diagnosed with lymphoma and I had to interrupt my career. When I started again, I had to take back words a little bit with technically, going back to using lead more than new technologies. So it interrupted a little bit that path, and I'm not really against what I'm doing now. I'm happy with what I'm doing now, but I'd like not to lose what I had started as well.
Yes.
So that's something which I really.
And how do you attain that? Do you bring on new apprentices, new people, teach them your ways, and create a new generation of stained glass producers?
Yes. Well, I open my knowledge to students, people who are interested in what I do, and I've run courses of stained glass painting. In terms of health and safety, my studio and the building is not really right for me to have people doing soldering and...
Yeah, don't bring your 6 or 7 year olds in here.
No.
Glass everywhere, guys.
No, but even for adults, in terms of soldering, I can't have it in terms of electricity, a few soldering irons and the fumes that we create when, my windows don't open, so I don't... If I've got airflow, it comes from a door which is about 100 meters further. So it's things like this. The building needs better health and safety for me to do this kind of workshop. But I run the workshops which I can run, which is painting on glass.
Okay.
And I'm in discussion with running workshops maybe on different sites outside my studio. It's in progress at the moment, and this other option as well, which I've created in time of COVID, is to create something online. So somebody who would have already maybe done a workshop somewhere else and wants to keep going from home and wish to have a bit of mentoring could do online a little bit with me, giving them advice and helping them. And I was thinking, because I'm French, to offer maybe both, practice your French and do stained glass.
That'd be amazing.
Chat with me about your stained glass project, and we'll do it in French.
That's so my wife speaks Spanish, so she's got that dual. I wanted my lad as well to have the dual language thing, but it's. No, my wife felt really nervous about speaking to my son in Spanish for some reason, and he's never really picked it up. So, very odd. What's this you brought to me? This piece of paper?
Yes, it is simply for the nature reserve of Priestley's. I did want to contribute to help them in their work, in what they do, and all the time they give for it. So. The gentleman, summed up what he would like to share about different events or support that could be given to the project.
So do you want me to read this out?
Yes, if you wish to, because it's your podcast as well.
It says things we should mention in the interview is the silver-studded blues at Prees Heath, the last remaining site in the whole of the Midlands for this beautiful butterfly, have had another very successful year. Their fourth in a row, with hundreds being seen each day over the last few weeks. Their flight season will be coming to an end in a couple of weeks' time. The butterfly conservation's big butterfly count starts on Friday the 16th of July and finishes on Sunday the 8th of August. This is a great way to help us find out which butterflies are doing well and which are not. It also gives everyone the opportunity to learn new skills in identifying and counting butterflies in their gardens, parks, local walks and further afield. Last year, over 110,000 people took part. Wow. All the information you need is available at www.bigbutterfly-conservation.org. I'm going to share that. I'll take this home and I'll share this on our Facebook. If people wish to make a donation to support the work of butterfly conservation, Simon Saville is at the moment cycling from Land's End to Jonah Groats. Wow, what an achievement! In aid of butterfly conservation. You can find out more about his epic journey, which is including spending a few hours at Prees Heath last Sunday and being astounded by the sight of so many butterflies, by visiting www.bikeforbutterflies.org. You can find out more. Finally, if people wish to help our work at Prees Heath in any way, please do not hesitate to contact Stephen Lewis at phwarden at sky.com. Thank you very much for that, Stephen. That's very nice.
So
butterfly conservation is very important, obviously.
It is essential, and it's
cross-pollination, very important.
Like bees, and
yes, of course.
Yeah. So and that's when I love doing work with stained glass as well. Like I'm contributing today just to pass a word as well, and when I finish my window and I share it online, everything, I keep passing the word as well for this kind of message that the client would like to pass, really, because it's quite essential. If I'm celebrating the butterflies and the insects in the window, why do I not celebrate to save them as well?
Beautiful. This year has been an odd one because I've seen. I work where I work. It gets ridiculously hot, so you have to open the windows. I work during the night, so I have to open the windows, and then the moths come in. But this year, I've seen some of the most beautiful coloured moths. You usually get the grey normal moths, but I've seen bright yellow ones, I've seen orange ones, yellow ones. These amazing coloured moths. I'm kind of like, yeah, you're cool. You can come in. It's fine. You look great.
Please come in.
Yes, please come in. Nathalie, you're amazing, and I genuinely I am in awe of the work you do, because it is far out for me, because I've never worked like this. It's a very slow, beautiful process that is almost alien to me in a nice way, because what you're doing is something completely different to what I've known. Like I said, you can't just throw out a piece of paper when you get it wrong. You got to go. I mean, I had this idea when we were doing it. I kind of my heart sunk. Imagine, I don't know if it's ever happened, but like you've worked on an amazing piece, they've put it in the back of a van, and it's fallen and broken on the way on transit to wherever it's going. Could you imagine? I mean, just the thought of things like that. I don't know why I torture myself with these terrible thoughts.
Well,
honestly,
it is challenging the day when you move your artwork from the studio to the client's home. You're really a bit shaky because you spent months.
Do not drop it.
No, do not drop it. I mean, even when we were fitting the window of the poppies, which were 20 centimeters by 20, so quite small. But even in the handling of it, when the gentleman who was doing the door for the client, so wanted to fit the windows in the door as a carpenter, and he was holding it, and I wasn't holding it, obviously. And my worries were it to be placed the wrong way as well. So I had to have my eyes always very well open because I knew my design more than he did. And then, but also, when it was handled from one hand to another, and then I was like, okay, yes, it will be fine. Those things will be broken.
It's not. It's a weird comparison to make, but my mother-in-law is a great baker, and whenever she makes like a big birthday cake or something, I'll sit in the front of the car and she'll be like, "Do not drop it." She'll put it on my lap. And I've got to hold this thing with my mother-in-law breathing down the back of my neck, knowing that if I drop it, she's just going to... How dare you? Can you tell our listeners, I know you mentioned it on the St. Mary's interview that we did, where people can find you, and if they wanted to hire you for work or get involved with what you're doing, how can people find you?
So, I've got a website, so www.couleurlive.com. Then there is a contact page on my website, so they could contact me through my website. I'm on Facebook as well as a page, Couleurlive page, and on Instagram. So that's different options really for contact. On my website, you have more details about works I've done in the past, different courses I'm doing. I've got a shop online, so you could also buy postcards or the book.
Nice.
Yeah, or the book I did because as we said at the beginning of the discussion, stained glass passes message like cartoons, really, in some ways. So when I for two works I did for the Magna Carta window, which I did for Liverpool Slavery Museum, which was a very important message in that window. I did the first book with them, a little book, which was presenting how we created it and the subjects. And then when I did the project for Shrewsbury Museum, I did another book as well because it's celebrating a local lady who was a stained glass artist, one of the first women who did stained glass in UK, really.
Good.
And also people contributed, so the community was involved, and all the story behind the window, which was really important, and so it's on the shop as well on my website.
So glass moving.
Yeah, don't worry, I know which glass it is. That's why I'm holding myself on it. It's just like a palette. It's like a palette glass.
The fact that I've been in here for as long as I have not broken anything, I'm happy with myself, James. I really am. Like, I'm proud of myself.
Yes. So that's the option as well. The shop where if you're curious and wish to have a few postcards which I've printed of the works I've done.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for inviting me here today. I know you're in the middle of work. There's lots going on. Like, guys, we had to set up here. We had to kind of gently move art out of the way. Like, you don't understand how cluttered, but like, it's like I said, it's in the midst of work. Like, we're right in the middle of work. So to find space for the microphones, we had to move things out of the way, and we just stood in the workshop. It's amazing. James has taken some pictures. You'll be able to see them. Can I tell you something about what we're doing? I think I've already told you about this, but I can use the actual name because this will go after the embargo, so we can do this. We can go full run up at it, James. On the at 9 a.m. on the 29th of September, we're going to go live on a podcast, and we're not going to stop for 24 hours. We're not going to stop till 9 a.m. on the 30th of September, which is International Podcast Day. The guys in LA, International Podcast Day, are aware of what we're doing. They're going to be on the show, and we're trying to, the Shrewsbury Biscuits, because we're doing 12 hours of the Shrewsbury Biscuit, 12 hours of You Suck, the other network I mentioned it earlier. And the biscuit schedule is coming up very nice. We've got some very good guests for this, and the USUC's coming up a bit slower, but we're trying to find some people across the ocean there, so it's a bit more difficult. And we have a name. Thanks very much to our sponsors, Reach, who have been working hard drawing logos, we created a brand and an idea and an image. This thing is amazing, and it's going to be called PodAid. So it's a very, very good brand, and I'm very happy with it because the whole idea of this is to challenge people. If you have a public-faced entity, if you have a podcast, if you have a game streaming, if you're a musician, if you're an artist, if whatever you're doing, if you're out there and there's lots of people watching you, go out there and affect your community, wherever you are in the world. And I want you to do better than me. And we're going to come back next year stronger. Pod Aid is going to be a yearly thing. And I want to see what you can do around the world. And what's the worst that can happen? We can all we can raise a bit of money for local charities, right? So that's what we're going to do. That's what Pod Aid is all about. So if you want to get in touch and get involved, we are selling sponsors. That's not the only way we're trying to make money. There will be a donate button too. But if you do want to sponsor an hour of this show, it's going to cost, I hate saying this, it's £100 minimum donation to Lingen Davis. That's what we're doing it for. And if you want to get in touch with us, go to our website, which is www.theshrewsburybiscuitpodcast.co.uk, made for us by our friends at Web Orchard, and you will be able to contact us from our website. And, what you're doing there with that £100 is you're supporting a local charity and doing a great deed there. And we will display your logo. We'll give you, this hour is brought to you by such and such. And that's what you're going to get. So Pod Aid is going to be fantastic. Thank you to everybody that's working on that. And Nathalie, thank you so much for having us here today.
Well, it's me. Thank you very much for that. It was really nice to have you both here.
James as well has been stood in the background patiently while taking pictures. So thank you, James.
As well.
Sorry?
Trying not to break anything.
Trying not to. I did see you've done very well, actually. So, yeah, very twinkle toes over there. This has been great. Thank you so much for chatting to me. Honestly, seriously, it's been really nice. And we will catch you guys next time on the Shrewsbury Biscuit. Thanks for listening, guys. Peace out.